Hello class, in this video, I'm gonna show you how to write C++ functions. And in this video, we concentrate on user-defined functions. That means the function that you write versus library functions, which come with the C++ compiler. And excuse me. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the slide. This case function is kind of complicated, so I'm gonna go over slides and then I will switch over to example along with the slide. So you can think of C++ function is like a function in math where you input a variable, the value of variable x, and then the function of x produce some output. So you can think of function in C++ is similar to function in math. Okay, let me make adjustment to the slide, otherwise you can't see on the top. Okay, right here. Okay, so why do we need functions? Functions help us in reducing code redundancy. That means if you want to do something or execute a block of code multiple times with different values, you can write a functions and then you call that function multiple times. So you don't have to repeat the same code over and over again. And once you write a function, you test the function, make sure it works, you can keep calling the function without worrying about how the function works. And another benefit of function is to make the code easier to read and easier to maintain. Because even if you call the function only once, it makes the code cleaner when you have a lot of functions, so that in your main function or main program, you call different functions to perform different tasks so that your main will look a lot smaller and it's easier to read and easier to understand. So the function can achieve a few goals. Number one, if you use a function multiple times, it will reduce the number of line of code or redundancy because you don't have to repeat the same line of code many times. If the function is used only once or call only once from your main functions, it still makes the code easier to read and easier to understand. So let's go over the definition of a function. What is a C++ function? A function is basically a group of statements given a name to perform a specific task. So you just put a group of statements together and it performs some tasks that you want the function to do. And the syntax is you have the data type of a return type followed by function name and then the list of the parameters. And then inside the curly brace, this is where your function code. These are the statement, the C++ statement. So let's take a look at the detail of each of these component of a function. The function return type, you define the type of value returned by the function. And in C++, the function can return any valid data type in C++. And if a function doesn't return any value, we say the data type that the function return is void. And we will look at a coding example to see how, how you specify the return type void. And after the function return type, the function name is a function name. The function name follow the same rule as the identifier. So far, you declare your variables. The variables is an identifier. So function follow the same rule as an identifier or variable. That means you start the function name with the lowercase, and you can use camel case convention, where if you have multiple words in your function, you start with lowercase and then you uppercase the first letter of the next word in your function. Or you can combine or separate the function name by an underscore. And after the function name is the parameters list. So this list the type and the variable name separated by the comma. Let's go to the next slide. So here is the sequence of uh, things that you need to do. You need to define a function prototype. The function prototype consists of all of these that we talk about: the data type, function name, and then parameter list, but no code, no function body. So only the declaration we call prototype. And later on, when you write the code, we call function definition. So function definition includes the function header, which look like the prototype, and then the statement inside the function. The parameter list consists of the type and variable names, the type of the variable and the variable name separated by a comma. And a function itself doesn't do anything until you call, or we also say invoke a function or call a function, same thing. So by defining a function, it doesn't run by itself. You have to call the function from another function. Let me make this slide a little bit bigger so we can see the top. All right. The type of functions and function call. So far, what you see is C in, C out. Those are we call library function. That means the library functions come with the compiler, and it provide a rich collections of functions that you can use. You don't have to write those functions. They come with the compiler. And this is a function that we talk about. You write these functions. That's why we call user defined function. That means the user define this function and you're gonna use it. You call it. A function call means you make a function call by using the function name inside another function, and then your function either return a result or return nothing, but it will perform some task. It executes some line of code inside the function. So let's take a look at the next part. The function may return nothing or return some value. The function return, if the function return a value or return a result, you need to have a return statement followed by an expression. And the expression can be a mathematical expression, or it can be a Boolean expression, or it can be a constant value. So the result of this expression will be returned from the function when you have a return statement. So the prototype, I mentioned a little bit about a prototype at the beginning. And sometimes we also call a function prototype as a function declaration. It tells the compiler the name of the function, the type of data that is returned by the function, and the number of parameters the function expect to receive, and the type of those parameters, and also the order of the parameters of those about the order and the type of those parameters. Okay, so let's take a look at a very simple, easy function. And in this example, this is the source code example called printline TPP. I'm gonna make this source code available on Canvas. So let's take a look at these functions. The line above here, we call prototype. In the function prototype, you declare the return type. In this case, the return type is void. It means the function does not return any value. And the function name is print line. Usually you create a function name that has meaning. That means it tells the user what the task the function will do. In this example, I said my function name is print line. By the name, you can tell it's going to print a line. And then this is parameter list. In this parameter list, I have only one parameter. And the type of this parameter is char, stand for character. And the parameter name is symbol. So this line is called function prototype. This is the main function. That's what you have been working on or written so far. You only write one function, and that function is main. And main is a special function name. In any program, there is only one function main. You can have many other functions, but there is only one function named main. And we haven't talked about return value in the previous video because we haven't talked about function yet. So right now, I want to say that function main return an integer. So function main is similar to any other user-defined function. It has to return a value, and by convention, it returns an integer. And you see at the end of the function, we have a return statement. It says return 0. So the return value that is returned from main will be returned to the operating system, and 0 indicate success. So by convention, return value from main, a 0 value means the main function executes successfully. If you have any other value like 1 or 99 or whatever value, you need to define what the value means. But usually non-zero return from main means it has some error, it has some problem. So let's take a look at how we call our print line function. I have a variable myChar, and this is a character variable. I assign myChar with the value of asterisk. And then I call my print line function. I say print line, I pass my variable myChar into my function. So when I do this, this is what we call the function or invoke the function. The execution from here, the program will go to here to the function print line and then execute the function body, which is this group of statement. In this function body, in the function header here, must match with what you declare up here. So this is the prototype. This is the actual function header. So the return type must match, the function name match, and then there's only one parameter that is char. And we call this parameter symbol. In this function, we are going through a for loop from 1 to 20, and we do cout symbol. So we're gonna, I accidentally clicked some key and move the symbol down here, but it should be there. So we're gonna print 20 times of this symbol. In this case, from main, we call print line, we pass in myChar. So the myChar, the variable right here, we call arguments. It's just the terminology. We call myChar argument, but in the function header, we call parameters. This is called parameters. And you don't need to have the same variable name. So my char is my local variable right here, and symbol is my parameter name. So when I make this function call, my char has the value of asterisk. This asterisk will become the value of my symbol. So my function doesn't know the original variable name or the argument is called my char. All it knows is it takes a character and then it print that character. So it's gonna print 20 times this symbol. And then I'm gonna reuse this function again. I said, now I assign value of pound sign, and I call my print line again. This time, my char has a value of pound sign, so the function will print 20 of the pound sign. And then I change again, for my char plus sign, and the function will print plus sign. Another way to call a function is you can pass the the value to the function directly without using the variable name. You can do something like this. Instead of say matcha plus, you can do this. And it works the same way. Because print line doesn't know where symbol come from. As long as it get a character value, it will take it and then print it. So let's switch to code to see how this function run. And I'm going to use code block again. And I already start code block. And also open, I use this open folder to open my source code. Let me show you where my source code is. I'm not going to open it again because I already opened it. So when I when I open that file, it's under this directory, Prof-Lam, iCloud Drive, school, CI2, CIC2A code, and just double click on this. If I double click or I click this and I say open, it's still the same because I already opened it. It still come back to the same place. All right, so let's say we're gonna run this example. Run. All right, I'm gonna move the screen side by side so I can show you what's going on. All right, so from line 12, I call print line and I passing my char, right? My char is star. That call bring me to here. I'm gonna execute this function. And this loop, I equal 1, I less than equal to 20, and I plus plus, this is my for loop. And I hope you still remember how the for loop works. So basically, I'm going to this for loop and I repeat this statement, execute this statement 20 times. I just do cout symbol, and if you count, it should be 20. And you notice that if I don't, when I do cout and I don't do end of line, it print the character next to each other because there is no new line. And after I finish printing this symbol 20 times, I'm gonna do another cout and \n. So the first \n, which stands for escape character new line, will terminate the line that I'm printing. So this will terminate the current line. We'll put a new line character there so that the next cout will print the next line. And the next cout, say \n again. So that's how I print one blank line in between. I terminate the current line and then I print another blank line. That's what statement 29 does. It terminate the current line, print another blank line. And after I finish this, I go back to the execution is done, transfer back to the main function. So I do this, jump here, finish executing print line, go back and execute the statement right after print line. And the next statement, my char is assigned the value pound sign. And I say print line again, call print line. Its execution is transferred to here. And the same thing is executed, same function is executed, but this time my symbol is the pound sign because I'm calling print line with the pound sign. That's what you see right here, the pound sign. Also 20 of them, finish, return, assign my chart to plus, call print line, go here, execute print line again. So in my slide, I said you don't really, if you just want to pass something to print line, you don't even need the variable. You can do something like this. You can do, let's comment out that line and copy. Oh, no, wrong line. Okay, do this the paste. Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna type it. I can say print line. You notice in code block, you don't really need to type the whole function name. You just type a few characters and code block is smart enough to fill in the rest. And then this time, I say I'm gonna do, let's say equal sign to make a difference. So I'm not using the plus sign. Let's terminate this run. And when you make changes to your code, remember to save. Otherwise, if you run again, you're going to run the old version of your code. After you save, you should not click this because this will run the old code. You have to click this build and run to run the new code. You see right now, instead of print the the last print line, instead of print the plus sign, it print the equal sign. And I just pass that equal sign to here. From here, become symbol in here, and then print. All right, so that's an easy symbol function. This function say void. It means the function does not return any value. So we don't need a return statement similar to main. So there is no return statement because the function only print some star or print some characters to the screen. It doesn't return any value to the main program. So let's close this window, go back to here. We'll look at some other function where we return some value. Okay, the next example, this function is called square. The function prototype said instead of void, the function prototype now say int. The function name is square. And you know that at this time, in the function prototype, you don't even need to specify the name of the parameter. You can just say, I'm taking the function square, take one parameter, and that parameter type is an int. And notice that I put a bubble right here. I call, this is what we call pass by value. We just specify the type of the parameter. No special character, nothing. We just specify the type we call pass by value. What pass by value means is in the function square, we will not be able to change the original of the parameter. So let's take a look at this source code. We declare variable I and I3. And we ask the user enter a number. The user should type in an integer I, and then we do cout square of this variable I that the user enter is, and this time we call where we pass in the argument I, and we use the return value in the cout statement. So when we execute this line, we're gonna call square, and square is in the next slide. In the function square, this is where the name of the parameter is required. In function square, what we do is we just want to calculate the square of an integer. So in here, we don't really do much. We just say return x multiplied by x, because this function is supposed to calculate the square of an integer variable, and a square of integer variable is a variable multiplied by itself. Like, let's say if x is 2, square of x is 4, 2 multiplied by 2. If x is 5, then square of x is 25. And then we go back here and we say, okay, we call function square to get the value square of I. And notice that the argument here, the variable here is I, but the function we just call it x, doesn't matter. The important thing here is this parameter, that's what we use in here. Whatever parameter we want to use, make sure that is passed into your function and you use it in here. Similarly, we call another function called cube. Cube is like the power of 3. And in the prototype, we say this is the function cube will return an int, and it also takes one parameter, and that is an integer. And right down here, we make the function call cube, and the return value of cube is assigned to variable I3. So there is a minor difference between this cout and here. In the cout statement, we just take the value and we pass to cout and we print it. We are not assigning it to any variable. On this line, we take the function, the return value of the function cube, and we assign it to value I3. And the next cout statement, print I, and also the value of I cube or I3. The function I3 or cube is defined in the next slide. Cube say I'm taking a parameter x and I will return an integer. And this function just calculate x to the power of 3, and that means x multiplied by x multiplied by x. So the function say, okay, I just calculate the x to the power of 3 or the cube of x and return. And that value, go back to reverse slide, it will be assigned to this variable. All right, so that's the two, that these two symbol functions. And notice that I said this is passed by value because this function just use a value that is passed into it. It will not be able to change the value in the parameter list that is given to it. That's why we call pass by value. And if we want to change the original content of the variable that is passed to a function, we have to do something different. It's called pass by reference. And the next slide, we'll talk about pass by reference. What's the difference? Well, I have two functions in here, and it will demonstrate the difference between pass by value and pass by reference. The first function is void change my age 1. And you notice that, let me make this slide a little bit bigger. Okay, the slide bigger. All right. You notice that this parameter just say int versus the second function prototype, change my age to say I'm taking an int and then followed by ampersand, followed by a space, and then ampersand. Ampersand indicate that this is passed by reference. It means that it allows the function to change the original value, the original content of the parameter. So let's take a look at the code. The function right here look really similar. The function change my age one. So I'm taking an integer x, and again, the name here doesn't need to match with the variable, the parameter name doesn't need to match with this, but usually we use just some meaningful variable name. I should call it, I don't want to call it age because I want you to see that it's different, but I should call it age um, to convey the idea that it represents age. But anyway, just I want to call it X so that it's different. In this function, let's say I change the value of X or X to be 50. So when I make this function call age right here, I pass in the argument age, which is assigned the value, initialize the value of 10. I call my age, and then when we come in here, age, originally it is 10 because that's the value it is right here. But in this function, we say we're going to change it to 50, and we print the value of X, which is age, to see what it looked like. Inside this function, it will print 50. But when you return you after you make the function call age, you go back here, age, guess what? Age is unchanged, it's still 10 because we say pass by value. That means the function get a copy of the value of the variable age or the argument, but it has its own local variable X, and whatever value it is assigned, X is assigned, it will not affect the original value of this variable because of this no ampersand. Then we have a second function called pass by reference. Change my age number two. Change my age number two said I'm taking an integer parameter, but I specify ampersand so that it's gonna pass by reference. And in here, I just reassign age to 15 to see if this function can change the age. I call change my age to. The execution is transfer or will be executed. The function will be executed. They come here, and then we say, I'm taking a variable X, and it is passed by reference. I'm going to change it to 22. And in here, of course, when I print age2, it say 22. And then after I finish executing this function, I return back to main. And now this is the difference between pass by reference and pass by value. Now it will print age that has the last value in this function. This function change or assign 22 to age. So let's switch back to code and then see how that works. All right, so this is the code that you see in the slide. Let's run it. Okay, let's make this side by side so you can see the output. Okay, in here, in main functions, age is assigned or initialized value 10. That's what you see right here. Number one, age now is 10. And I make the function call, change my age 1, pass an age to it. The execution is transferred to change my age 1. And in here, I just change age to 50. And then I print it. In my change, age 1, age X, or age is 50, because I assign 50 here, right? And do you know what this T. Backslash T means inside my double quote for cout, it is a tab key. So one tab key, two tab key. That's why you see there are some blank in front of this line. That's two tab key. And after execute my H1, return to main, right? And then age is assigned 15. I call function change my H2. Change my H2 right here is called by reference. I assign value of 22. So in change my H2, I do cout. Again, I'm using two tab key, do cout, and it print. And in change my H2, you see right here, age is 22 because I make the change right here. And that's similar to H1. However, the difference is after I return from back to the main function, I print here is my age now, and now it's a 22. That value is assigned in here because I do pass by reference. So the variable can be changed by the function. And that's the difference between the two. And you see that if I want to print the double quote in my output, I have to do backslash double quote in front of it. And backslash also is called the escape character, similar to the way that tab key works. But if backslash is follow any character that does not have special meaning, like T is the tab key, has special meaning. But I just want to print the double quote. If I don't have backslash, let me close this window and let's say if I don't have backslash, what happens? That's what it looked like, right? And if I save and I'm gonna compile or build, I got a problem. You see the red, like a stop sign right there? That tell me that there is a problem on that line. If I look down below, it's unable to find string literal operators, double quote A's with constant char something. So indicate that this is something wrong. So if you look at the line, it looked like this is the starting of the string you want to output, and this is the end. And then H by itself has no meaning or no, or syntactically it's not correct. It's not the correct syntax. So that's what the error say. So then you should look back and say, what's wrong with this? You know, it have to do with this. And then by looking at it carefully, you say, oh, there is nothing between the close and even space, and so it doesn't look right. And that's where the backslash come in. Backslash say, just print that character for me. So if I compile, I change compile, it works again. So that's the second example. I'm gonna go through one more example. Okay, change age. Okay, I'm gonna go, this will be in the next video. I'm gonna go to another example in the code called compute average. And this example, the functions also has a loop in it. So demonstrate that the functions, in the function, you can write any kind of statement. Okay, so let's see what this function does. The function main has two variables, num value and average val. The function main asks the user to enter the number of values. The number of value, the user will enter the number of values, and then we call the function compute average. We pass in num value. And then we execute this function, and Oops, sorry, I pressed some key. Okay. Uh, so if you look at this parameter, it is passed by value. There is no emphasis. So it means we will not be able to change num count, but we don't want to anyway. That's number one. Number two, you notice that there is no function prototype in this example. Function prototype means you declare a function like here, and then you're gonna make the call in main, and then later on you define the function with code later. So here is only prototype, no function code. But here the code is down here. By declare function prototype, the compilers allow us to make the function call in main before the function is defined. So that's the benefit of doing this. So your function can be defined anywhere, doesn't have to be before main, because you already have a prototype. The prototype tell the compiler what the function name is, what the return value is, what parameter list is. In this function, we don't have the prototype. So we need to define the function with all the code before we can make the function call. So I just want to point out the difference between the two. So we call compute average, pass in num value, compute average, I'm gonna take in num count, and I go to the for loop of from 0 to less than count of how many numbers. And I ask my user to enter the value of each number that the user want to calculate the average. Notice that I initialize the value sum to be 0 outside this for loop. And then each time I go to this for loop, I increment or I add the current value to the value sum. And I hope you still remember this symbol. This means is similar to value sum equal value sum plus current per value. But this involves a lot of typing. So we save some typing by combining. We by shorthand notation, we write like this. And in general, if you are a programmer in C, you don't write this kind of statement. You always write this. Nobody write this. That's too long to type. And by looking at it, people may say, well, you're not the expert. You're not the pro. All right, so let's save this and oh, I need to expand this. And then the function say it returns a double. So the function needs a return value. That's where you see return followed by an expression. Expression is the sum divided by the count of how many values. So that's how you calculate the average, right? The average is the sum of all the numbers defined by the count of how many numbers. And when we return to the main function, this result is replaced in here and is assigned to average val. Then we do cout average out. And do you remember fixed set precision 3 means we're gonna print 3 digits after the decimal place. So let's run this program. Okay, it pop up the window here. So I'm gonna move this to side by side, enter the number value. Let's say I enter a value, let's say 3 to make it easy. So I'm gonna calculate the average of 3 number. And the first program, or in this case, the function asks me to enter a number. So let's make it easy. I say 10. The second number is 2. So that's 12. And let's make it even. 3. So that's 15. You can see that the average will be 5, right? That's 5. Let's do some fractional, enter some fractional number or a long sequence of numbers so that you can see how it works. Okay, I'm gonna say I'm gonna enter 5 value. 99, 24. I just type random key on my keyboard. So how many do we enter so far? 1, 2, 3, 4. So we need one more. 900 just for fun. And we calculate the average of 5 value, and the average is this number. So in general, once you test the function and you know it works, then you can use this compute average multiple times in your program, in your main. And whenever you need to calculate some average number, you can go just make the call. So let's terminate that run. I'm gonna stop right here. So this video just go over the basic of the how to write the functions and make the function call. And the next video will go into more detail about many or about local variable, global variable, and so on. So this is the end of this video. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.